Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we motivate, educate, and today, boy, we're going to inspire you. We got the one and only Mr. Brandon Dawson from Cardone Ventures. I tell you what, I had the chance of spending 3 days with this gentleman. He's powerful, but what I loved about him is, man, this guy is real. I heard his heart when he spoke, and let me tell you, sometimes people say money changes you. This guy is just the real deal. So let's welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, Mr. Brandon Dawson. Standing ovation, my friend. Come on, we're cheering you on, brother. Woo!
Hey, Daniel, how are you? Great to be on your show. Great to be on your show.
Man, well, I'll tell you what, I had the great pleasure of meeting you. I know who you are, but can you do me a favor, my friend, and introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, please?
Absolutely. I'm Brandon Dawson. I am the business partner to Grant Cardone. We own Cardone Ventures, and I'm a part of the executive team for the Cardone Enterprise Global Group. And I'm a growth and scaling expert. Started my last business with no money, never raised a dime, never borrowed a penny, generated 50 million in profits, sold it for 77 times EBITDA, $151 million. Then I took $1 billion company to $4 billion in market value, partnered with Grant Cardone 36 months ago, and we've created a brand new business out of thin air that's worth over $500 million. So that is what I do, is help business owners do exactly what I do, which is grow, scale, and create massive value, eventually exit with little to no money out of their pocket, because we teach them how to make money.
Well, I gotta say, everything you just said is true, because we were talking before we came on live on the show, is that everything that I learned with you in Scottsdale, I've been applying golden nuggets here and there, and I've seen the return in our first quarter here in 2022. And that's that I haven't really had it like gone in deeper. This is just kind of what I learned. And the one thing that I really learned is you gave a great explanation, right? Because so many people, they misuse the word scale and scaling. And one thing that you really taught on that was, right, when you scale, you maximize the level that you're at. And so many times I think people are so eager to go to the next level in business, but they haven't even tapped into the crap that they have right now, right? They haven't even utilized 50% of the stuff that they have. And they use the word scaling, but it's two different things. I know you told me that. We talked about this a lot in depth, but what is the main difference between scale and scaling? Because I think so many people in business, they have the wrong definition of what each one of them means, Brandon.
And most of them hire kids that are pawning themselves as marketing and growth hacks, and none of those kids have ever actually built anything. So they're just selling a service and a concept. Scale's maximizing what you have. So in business, there are natural break points where if you go beyond those break points, so for example, break point 1 is 100,000 to $3 million. Break point 2 is 3 million to 8 million. Break point 3 is 8 to 15, 15, 25, 25, 45, so on and so forth, all the way up to $4 billion. Think about levels of a house. If you decide you're going to build a one-level house and you start building it, you're halfway through construction and you start making more money. So you tell the builder, throw a second level, and then halfway through that construction, throw a third level, and then halfway through that, throw a fourth level. And nobody comes back and re-engineers the house. Now, it wouldn't happen in the building world because that used to happen and shit used to collapse on itself and everyone would die. So people have learned, like, you need to re-engineer the foundation, the structural elements of the structure before you add on it. The problem with businesses is people just go and go and go and go and go and go. So as they get bigger, they actually get less efficient. They get less effective. They have brand new implications as they grow to the next level. First, it's, does the thing that you're doing work? 31.5 million small to mid-sized businesses in the United States, 2/3 fail in the first 5 years, 97% fail in 10 years. So only 3% of all businesses work, and 25 million out of the 31.5 have one employee, the founder. So, and then 5.3 have between 2 and 12 employees, and only 600,000 have more than 12 employees. So you know right away, 98.3% of all the businesses are trapped under $3 million in revenue. So you already know that's break point 1. So when you don't engineer the structural elements of your business, when you don't fortify the foundation for the weight that you currently have on it, and you take off, you will collapse. So scale is making sure that before you try to go after doubling and tripling of growth, that you fortify your business. You understand where is the highest level of efficiency I can get out of my current operations. How do I become more profitable? How do I become more proficient? How do I become a better leader with a team? How do I create some leaders? What systems do I need? So these are things that you're every once in a while kind of pausing, going back and saying, what am I struggling with? What are the areas that keep me awake at night? What things am I not doing I should be doing that I don't even know to do? Because building a business is all about practicing and hopefully succeeding, or practicing and failing and learning and then changing. So if you could just eliminate the practicing and go straight to the structural aspects, have somebody actually teach you at each level exactly what needs to be in place, how to do those things, and maybe even hold your hand through that process, and engineer the architecture of your business. Then that way you could build, fortify, build, fortify, build, fortify. Well, the building, the rapid expansion of what works. That's the definition I have for scaling. Scaling is the expansion to the rapid expansion of what you can prove works. It creates value. Scale is maximizing what you have at the moment in time. You realize you need to fortify and structurally engineer before you try to pop to the next level. So most people outgrow their ability to manage it and they break.
I love what you just said. And you know, one thing, just being over there with you, I always made decisions, right? As I started, of course, you say yes to a lot of things in business when you're new, when you're a young entrepreneur, right? 5 years and younger. And then as we started getting just more ground, more traction, more clientele, and we grew, one thing that I really started doing with people that I was doing business with is really doing right based on the values. And what I loved about what you talk about is, and the values, it goes more than just connecting with people in business that have the same values in you. Is you actually run the business, right? I think one thing that came to mind when you said that is fortifying, right? Your business is hiring people based on your values too. I think so many people, we talk about values and core values in business, but I think when I go and do my business coaching, most people don't even live by them, right? They just kind of have them on the wall, it's on a plaque, and this is our values and this is our mission statement. But I think one thing that I learned about you is you really live it out. How important is it to really hire based on your values? Because when you said that, fortifying, right? Because the people are what's going to hold you, right? You got to fortify, you got to build the people up. And if you have the wrong people, you're only as strong as your weakest link or your weakest individual. And one thing that I loved is that you said, right, you got to have the right people and hold them accountable based on the values, and you hire based on that. And also, right, if there's something that's an integrity issue, right? Not integrity as moral, but just an integrity as far as, okay, why didn't we do this? Well, these are our values. I thought we were aware of them. Oh, what do you have to say about that, Brandon?
Yeah, well, once a business grows beyond the 2 or 3 million size, it's all going to be relative to the quality of the people you're able to surround yourself with. And so many business owners say it's really hard to hire great people, and they blame people for why they have business issues. But I'm just here to tell everyone that's on your show, bad business owners will never hire great people.
Boom.
So like, look, if you look in your business and you're frustrated with your people, it's a John Maxwell law of mirror. Whatever's in your business, you put it in there. That business is a direct reflection of your persona as the business owner. It's just that you're emotionally disconnected from that logic. So you see things that are happening in your business that you don't like, you get frustrated by it, and you blame other people. And yet it's your business. You put those people in there. You're the one that was not clear about the competencies, about the contributions, about the results that need to be driven. It's your lack of clarity as the business owner that allows you to attract people who fail underneath you because you don't know what you're doing. So this is just an implication of being a new business owner. And the truth is, the natural process of building a business is entirely practicing. So you're practicing on your operating skills. You're practicing on your marketing skills. You're practicing on your sales skills. You're practicing in your leadership skills. You're practicing in your strategic skills, and you're practicing in all elements of the technical aspect of technology and everything else to grow your business. So what you do is you start to struggle, and you go out as a young entrepreneur at any size, by the way. This is why 97% of businesses inside of 10 years collapse, because even the ones that grow, they collapse. And I've watched $50 million businesses become irrelevant overnight. When you don't recognize that you are the lid. John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid, 21 irrefutable laws. First law, most important law, the cap. When you recognize you're the cap and you cannot attract competent, skilled, remarkable, contributing people, intellectuals out here, if you're the lid, because you'll attract everyone underneath you. And when you understand that principle, then you understand that whatever you have in your sphere of influence, whatever you've brought into your life, it's under you. So you're the one responsible. And to your point, another Maxwell law of chain, you're only as good as your weakest link. Well, in most cases, the business owner is the weakest link because they're practicing, not because they're bad people, but because they don't know. They have unknowingness. And so the difference between knowingness and unknowingness is practicing versus certainty. And when you don't have certainty in business, everything's hard, everything's scary, everything's stressful, everything's fearful. And when you have that in the environment, everything becomes extremely, extremely burdensome. And the alternative to that is knowingness, knowing what to do, when to do it, who to do it with, how to do it, what you're doing, where you're going, what you want to do when you get there, what it looks like. The more you can have a clear picture and have certainty, the faster you accelerate to the success equation. And most business owners have just never been taught, nor is it taught. They're not going to teach it in universities. I've sat through Wharton and Stanford-based scaling programs. The people teaching it generally have probably never built anything. They're using research, and scaling is in the nuance. It's called entrepreneurial intuition. You learn to develop your intuition if things are going right, if things are going wrong, if you're aware, if you acknowledge you're unaware, and you learn to ask the right questions in order to make the best decisions based on not pulling, P-O-L-L-I-N-G, not going around and pulling people underneath you to get perspective and advice and guidance, and lawyers that work by themselves and accountants, but going to a mentor who is a direct example of exactly what you want to build, ingratiating yourself and understanding how can I replicate, duplicate, model, mimic, and master exactly what you did to get exactly where you're at. And in order for someone to concede that that's the proper way to grow, they have to give up their intellectual ignorance or their intellectual arrogance. And that's why businesses fail, because they opt to not operate with intellectual awareness and intellectual curiosity by learning to talk to the right people, ask the right questions, and do the right things.
Boom, baby. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is the part of the show where you get out your pen, you get out your paper, because Brandon's going to continue to drop some massive bombs here, and you got to write this stuff down. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that you retain a lot more than the information that you write down. So get out your pen and paper, take notes. Listen to what he just said, the law of the mirror. If your business is struggling right now and the people that are not performing in your business, guess what? You hired them. And maybe you're dealing with things. Maybe you're that insecure leader, right? Maybe you're not open-minded. He said the intellectual arrogance. Insecurities. What insecurities have you not dealt with that you're not, that you bring in an A player, right? Because you're an A player yourself, and then they start doing good and they outshine you. You got to share the spotlight. Think about Brandon and think about Grant. One thing I love that you said, man, when we were there, Brandon, is you're like, right? You recognize the fact you're so strong of a leader. And this, I admire this about you, is that you said, you know what? I could have put any name on my jet, but I put Cardone Ventures because that's what got me with the jet. You said something to that extent, so I don't want to quote you, but I remember you said that vividly. And it takes a true leader. It takes a true man knowing that he's certain who he is to say something like that. Because most people that I know wouldn't have that competency to say that within their belief system. And you're just, I respect that about you. So
well, here's a fact, you know, like I have so much admiration and respect for Grant Cardone and Elena Cardone. So here's the thing. When people can't honor who's helping them succeed, they will never get other people to honor them for helping those other people to succeed, because it's actually a core value. And so if you can't give something, you cannot get something, which is exactly why people struggle hiring great people, because young entrepreneurs, intellectual, ignorant, or arrogant entrepreneurs make everything about them. And nobody wants to be around somebody where it's all about them. So the whole art in scaling is making it about everybody else. Because see, I'm an experienced business owner, and I know that the quality of my organization, the quality of my deliverable, the quality of my service, the quality of my product, the quality of my promise, if you exchange money with me, will only be realized 98% of the time through the team I've built. Therefore, there is nobody more important to me than my team, because if they don't succeed, I don't succeed. So my point of focus isn't on the what we do. Once you prove the what works, that doesn't matter anymore. It's who you do it with, how you do it, and the leadership team you've created to hold everyone accountable with discipline and inspiration, and aligning those teams with transparency so you can drive the stated results and purpose of the organization. And if you don't recognize that as the leader, you're already in trouble.
Yeah. Let me ask you, you just said a statement right now, transparency. I had this conversation with one of my clients yesterday, because he owns some pretty big corporations, and they're working on breaking through those set of shows. Would you say that it's okay? This was my perception, but I said this, right? I said, well, just talk to them, right? This is going to be your new milestone. If you want to hit 10 million in revenue, put it out there in the conference room, put it out there with everybody. They're like, well, I don't want everybody to know what we're making. That comment was made. Do you think it's great, right, to share a milestone? Just to say, if you're making 25 million a year as a corporation, the milestone, the next one's going to be 35 million. Wouldn't you share that with the vision, with the people? That way they know where you're going, or would you keep the revenue quiet to yourself?
Well, you sit through my classes. I tell everybody, the first 6 months we did 2.5 million. The first full year in business, we did 14.5 million. Our second full year in business, we did 41 million. This year we'll do 75 million, because I tell everybody that in 5 years, we're going to be 100 million. You know why I talk about it? Not only do I talk about it, but every single morning we report the revenue that we've collected towards the stated goal for the month. Because unlike the business owners are like, I don't want to talk about it, because what you don't talk about, you're going to have problems with. So
Yes.
what you do talk about, you manifest.
Yes.
So the only reason a business owner would not want to talk about their revenues is because they don't feel ethical about how they're sharing the success with their team. See, if you feel ethical with the success you're having, you want to talk about it, because the only way you're going to attract people. See, here's the thing again with business owners who struggle. They don't understand that one single successful engagement with a human being requires 5 steps. First, you got to find somebody. Then you got to be able to attract them. You got to give them a reason to care, to want to work with you. Then you got to be able to align them with the business so that they understand how to succeed bigger, better, faster, and create more value. That is the purpose of the business and of the employee. The fourth thing is, then you got to develop them. Nobody wants to be stuck doing the same thing for 10 years. Just like no business owner wants to be sitting there doing the same thing for 10 years. So you have to have a development plan for people. Most people want to get developed. And then the fifth thing is you have to retain your people. You got to keep them, because as you're growing and scaling, the complexity of the business requires the intuition of the people that help build it. So having one successful engagement requires 5 steps that you have to work towards perfecting. The reason I bring this up is that lid I was talking about. The reason I would not talk about going to 100 million is I don't believe myself I'm going to 100 million. The reason I don't talk about we're at 10 is because I'm embarrassed and I don't have a plan to get to 20. Because if I did have the confidence, I would be telling my team and I'd be explaining, by the way, when we go from 10 million to 20, I'm going to create 5 new positions, 5 new executive positions. And those people will have a shot, an opportunity at doubling their income by doing these things collectively for the organization. Because see, I'm focused on increasing the capacity of the human being, scale versus scaling. You cannot scale a business if you don't scale your team. You can't move your business to scaling, rapid expansion of what you prove works, if your team isn't scaling. So I need that. And I understand that is much more important than the what I do, because if I have the right team, they will fulfill. Once I prove the what works, they will make sure the what works, because they're emotionally, financially, structurally tied to the success of delivering the what. So business owners that are all caught up in themselves don't understand that bigger picture, so they hide everything. And in the process of hiding it, anybody who could be good lowers their confidence about what's possible. Then they go find an alternative that doesn't include that business owner. And then the business owner fortifies every time I hire anybody and give them an opportunity to succeed, they screw me. So I'm no longer going to allow anybody to succeed, and I'm just going to hold everybody down, and then they're already toast.
Yeah, I love what you said. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to what he's talking about. Listen to what he's talking about. It reminded me of that quote from Zig Ziglar, right? Grow the people and the business will grow. That's what Brandon's saying. You can't grow a business without growing the capacity of your employees to receive. What isn't growing is dying, right? If you're not being creative, you're disintegrating. That's what he's saying right now. So you as a business owner, what do you have? 1, 2, whatever, or even you, maybe you're not even investing in yourself. There's so many solo entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs that don't want to, right? They see everything as a cost. It's an investment in yourself. And if you have an assistant or you have a team of 3 or 4, whatever it may be, maybe you're a small enterprise with 50 or less, you have to invest in your people, the growth of your people, and stop seeing it as a cost. I see so many people, Brandon, to what you're saying is right. They operate a business, but they still think as an employee. I do a corporate training called Kill the Employee Mindset, right? Because the one thing that when you see things as a cost, you never see the return of the investment coming back on the back end. And most people, they hit a financial point where they're comfortable, and all the things that they did to get to that point of business or success, they stop doing it. And next, they stop going backwards. What's your perspective on that?
It's that lid. You have an implication, you have an owner lid, and you have breakpoints. They're two different things, right? So the breakpoints are just the structural aspect of what happens when you get to certain sizes. And then the owner's lid is how you react to the things that happen when you get to a certain size. If you're not growing the owner with competency, right? And the attributes required to build, then no one knows what they're doing. So when you run into the natural implication, the structural elements of sheer weight on top of a foundation that's not built to support it, there is no other way but for gravity to kick in. And when that happens, you lose all confidence. So you literally need to understand, if you're serious about growing and scaling, your responsibility to that effort. And when people don't take that responsibility, or worse, they get sold information and data from people who are selling something but have actually never done it. And that's why I say business owners that go, oh, I got screwed over. You didn't get screwed over. You did not get screwed over. You made a bad decision. And your bad decision was you didn't ask the right questions. So I tell every business owner, before you seek guidance, advice, perspective, opinion, anything, ask 3 questions of the person that you're talking to. Number 1, what's the most amount of money you've ever made yourself personally in a year? Number 2, you personally, what's the biggest thing you've ever built, quantified by number of employees you had? Now, you could have been in a division of a company, it doesn't matter, but you were responsible for building it from ground up. How many employees, how much revenue for that business unit or your company, and how much profitability did you make? And then the third thing is, what is the single biggest exit? How much money did you ever take off the table? And the reason I even ask that of executives when I'm interviewing, for example, I'm interviewing an in-house lawyer, and we're interviewing 25 of them, and we're going through and I'm asking that question, and the lawyer's like, well, I built a company, I had my own firm, it had 3 or 4 employees. Okay, why'd you give up on that? How much money were you making? Well, I was making $250,000, but it was based on my own billings. Okay, so you built a business with 3 or 4 employees, but you never made more money than what you were billing yourself. Would you take scaling and growth advice from that human?
Hell no.
Hell no. So now it's like, okay, but doesn't mean they can't contribute, but they're not going to be somebody in charge of 50 or 100 people. They don't know how to do it. So if all of a sudden I like the person I'm interviewing, I'm like, now you're in charge, and the thing doesn't work, it's because I put the wrong person in the wrong place, doing the wrong things, because I chose to do that, because I asked the wrong questions, or I didn't ask the right questions, and I didn't have the duty and responsibility to put the right person in place and find that. So I asked those 3 qualifying questions. Because if I want to make $500,000 a year, I'm not going to talk to somebody who makes $250,000 a year. If I want to build a business with 100 employees, I'm not going to talk to somebody who's built a business with 8. If I'm going to make a decision about investing in something, I'm not going to talk to somebody that's never made an investment. If I'm going to make a decision to add an extension or do something for my business, I'm not going to go poll my employees who work for me, because if they knew how to do it, they wouldn't be working for me. And I'm not going to go home and ask my wife and make her feel like if it doesn't work, she's obligated to my bad decision. Because people who are not confident, people who are insecure, they poll and they try to get everybody else's opinion. So if they're wrong, they can say everyone else was wrong too. That's what a leader who doesn't know how to lead does. What I do is I make decisions with certainty. I use data. I use statistics. I use the awareness of momentum, because it works for you or against you. And when momentum, data, and stats are going up, I lean into the indicator that allowed it to happen. I don't care what anybody else's opinion is. Because the stats never lie.
Yeah. Somebody out there's listening to this episode, and you're right. You maybe you're blaming others. You're blaming your assistant. You're blaming one of your executives or your supervisors or a VP, whatever the title may be. And maybe what you need to do is look in the mirror and look at yourself. Maybe you got comfortable somewhere in your business. Maybe you stopped challenging yourself. Whatever it may be, listen to what Brandon's talking about. You know, I had to be honest with myself this past week. I could kick myself in the ass because I made a decision that I shouldn't have made, and it cost me dearly. And it was with an employee, but it's something that I owned it, right? The people that I've talked to said it was my mistake. I own it as a leader. And I think so many times you're listening to this show and you want to pawn everything off on COVID did this, or the supply chain did this, or we did whatever it is. But the ultimate thing is that it's your business. You're the leader. You have to own the responsibilities and stop blaming others. And once you take ownership of what you did wrong, right? Because we all want to take ownership of what we did right. But when you take ownership of what you did wrong, that's where the growth happens. That's where the next level of character building has. Because like what Brandon was talking about, the fortification is in you, the leader. Because if you can't handle the stress level, if you can't handle the crap that's right now on the certain level you're at, how do you expect to get more? You're going to collapse. You're going to implode. And that's why I see so many businessmen that's hit a level of success, Brandon, and then they implode, they self-destruct, they go and right. And they look for the solution in alternative things that ain't good, right? Like alcohol, food, whatever it may be, right? But because they don't have the character, they don't have the fortification, like you call it. I call it the structural integrity when I do the training, but they don't have that strength to handle it. And you have to have the capacity to know that, right? You're able to handle that next level of business. So I love what you're saying.
If you're not growing yourself, then the question is who's growing your team, and what are they learning? So if you've never done it, expecting other people to do it, especially if you ask those 3 questions and they don't have the qualifications to do it, then you have to acknowledge that you're the intellectual, ignorant, or arrogant person, because who would ever hire people and put them in charge of trying to do something that nobody knows how to do? Like that's the implication of young business owners, is they throw people at issues that they created without working with those people to figure out how to solve those issues. And then they blame those people when those issues don't get resolved. And quite honestly, there's no way to change the momentum of a broken business system with broken thought leaders that are doing the wrong things that put the business in that position in the first place. Like, there's just nothing you can do about it unless somebody comes in and takes control of it. So you can't hire somebody. I have a saying, you're never going to hire somebody to fix your problems, because you're in charge and you created them. So you won't even listen to them, even if they knew how to fix your problems.
And you're the problem, right? They don't want to hear that. But it's like you're talking about, right? When we're talking about the revenue, how you freely share. We're going to go from 75 million to 100 million. Well, the opposite of that is, right, what you talk about, you bring about. So if you're always talking about how bad things are, or my team is this, my team is that, you're the one that's kind of, you're manifesting that truth instead of manifesting the fact that we're turning things around and doing that. Let me ask you this. We'll shift here a little bit, but before we go on, is what are to drop some, because you're dropping some massive value. What are 2 of the things that you see most common, just to say, as you're coming out with we'll just say 5 employees or less, what's the most the most common 2 problems you see that people can kind of maybe look at and say, right, these are 2 things that I need to work on? What are the 2 most things that come up with young businesses as an entrepreneur?
Well, yeah. So first, it's the lack of awareness of the responsibility of the business owner. So what most business owners is, they start the business, they're doing things they don't really like to do. And so their fastest decision-making process is to try to hand off things they don't like to do to somebody else. So their full focus is, how do I get out of the things I don't want to do, like sales or marketing or understanding finances or talking to the client, because I actually love what I do. And so I got to get a salesperson, I got to get a marketing person, and I got to get a finance person. And they disengage from the things that actually drive value for the business. And then they blame those people when it doesn't work. But the truth is, none of those people are going to go to work for, if they were any good and competent, they're not going to go to work for somebody who wants to pay the least amount of money, give off the least amount of give the most amount of responsibility with the least amount of direction. Nobody thrives or survives in that environment. So the number 1 mistake is, you as a business owner need to lean into the elements that drive the most value for the business. And once that works, you're no longer allowed to do those elements by yourself. You have to bring somebody with you and start training them. And the goal is to get 3 people trained in the business that can do what you do. And then you need to augment around you, like the finance person, the marketing, but they need to work as a team together. And you don't know how to do that. So you need to go find mentors that can teach you how to do it. You need to educate yourself on what that looks like. It's the same shit I went through. I went from 0 to 65 million in 36 months, all through acquisition in my first business in my 20s. Nobody worked together. Nobody did anything the same way. Every executive I hired had a different opinion or thought, and they all wanted to eventually run the company, and they were waiting for me to stumble so I'd get replaced. Like, there was no continuity or strategic alignment in the organization. It was just so fragmented, so disruptive, I call it randomized business. It felt good. We were all generating tons of revenue and buying things and raising capital. And I took the company public, and all that was wonderful. But at the end of the day, it was all for naught. I mean, it was just all fed the ego and not the pocketbook. So the only pocketbook that got fed was my private equity groups. So at the end of the day, I wasted 7 years, learned a lot, learned what I'd never do again, given the opportunity, God's giving me the opportunity to do it again. And so, those affirmations and commitments to do it the right way have been a 20-year journey for me. And I teach entrepreneurs on how to do that so they can avoid all the mistakes I made.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for opening your heart on that. Let me ask, let's shift a little bit here. What are 2 things, right? I guess, what are 2 lessons personally that you have learned with what you just said, right? Because we see Brandon Dawson right now, Jet. I love seeing your stuff on IG, man. It's like, you know what? One day I'm going to be there with them. And it gives me that vision, that inspiration. But of course, that wisdom, like you said, it came out as a cost. What are the 2 hardest lessons you personally had to learn in business that you can share with us? Because I think so many times, just being honest, right? You got to be transparent, like you said. Can you share that with us? Some of the 2 things that you learned personally?
Yeah, and just so the people that listen to the show don't know me, understand that the lessons I talk about are the mistakes I made. So I'm not projecting on other people and saying things about those people based on my observations of those people. The lessons I teach on are the mistakes I made. It was from going deep into why I screwed things up, how I screwed things up. And if I was given an opportunity to do it again, what I would need to know to not screw it up, and then spent 20 years working on myself to be where I'm at today. So I want to make sure that people that hear this understand all the reflection I'm giving you and all the opinion I'm giving you is because I was the not best version of myself, and I'm trying to learn to be the best version. And all I can do is use statistics and results to validate if it's working or not. So I want to make sure people understand that. So the 2 things that I had to come to grips with in 2001 and 2002, when I became a victim of my private equity group selling out, all this stuff, was that I was operating on that left side. I had so much success so fast and broke through every barrier that everyone said I couldn't do. I thought I knew and could do anything. and I started operating with intellectual ignorance and intellectual arrogance. I started thinking I knew better, and I started thinking I would figure it out. I stopped talking and asking the right mentors, focusing on the right things, and I just got bigger faster because I figured I was smart enough and successful enough that I actually bought into my own bullshit that I was good enough that I would figure it out. That was my fatal mistake, because even though I was figuring it out, what I didn't realize, and I tell business owners this, look, in the scaling process of rapid expansion, there's three aspects of your life. It's not just the business breaking. There's personal breakage, professional breakage, and financial breakage. Now, at any given time, any one of those things can break. First marriage broke. Second marriage broke. So you can think financially, my first cycle broke. So you can sit and think you got it all together and you're going to figure it out. I guarantee you, though, that overall weight and complexity of adding on the structure, I guarantee you something personally, professionally, or financially, when you least expect it, will break. I am certain of that. The question is, how fast can you recover? Or how hard can you train to withstand the weight, knowing something could break, so you prepare yourself for it to not break? And what I decided is that instead of waiting for it to catch up to me, I would get as far of proactively planning personally, professionally, and financially as I can, so that I can condition and prepare myself as I stack weight on top of the organization. And that's true with my current wife. We dated for 7 years. We forecasted and planned the next 25 years to make sure we were speaking the same language. I didn't do that the previous 2 times. My financial goals and objectives, planning those out so that I can chart against the success equation. And then my business, making sure that I hit my targets every single year for my business. And if I'm off target, any of the targets that indicate success, if I'm off of them, then I pause for my growth objectives and I go scale and I figure out how to maximize what I have until I have the confidence that it will compound again. And then I hit the accelerator. But I learned that through intellectual ignorance and intellectual arrogance. The solution to that for me was awareness, intellectual awareness, and curiosity. The quality of your questions will always determine the quality of your results.
Boom. I love what you're saying, because so many times we don't really think about it, right? Think about this, ladies and gentlemen, as you're listening to what he's talking about. How many start stops have you had in your business? How many start stops have you had in your life? You know, Brandon's opening his heart and he's talking about some of the setbacks he's had, but sometimes we get these setbacks in business and you just sit there and you feel pity on yourself, or you feel sorry for yourself, and you play that woe's me card. And then you stay on the sideline of business, even though you have a business, maybe even having employees. I've seen it where business owners stay on the sideline for 1, 2, 3 months, are not really in. They show up to work, but they're not even in the business. Is that you right now? Are you struggling with that, with the start stop, that you stay on the sidelines for too long? You got to be resilient. You got to bounce back. And like I said earlier, you got to take responsibility for that crap. There's nothing more better that you can do than just take responsibility. If you failed, if you made a mistake, own it. Like, own it. You got to own it. And that's what Brandon's talking about, right? He said, okay, I went through 2 marriages. What can I do not to do it again on the 3rd one? And he owned it. But I can guarantee you he didn't stay on the sideline forever. And maybe you need to get off the sideline and get your butt back into the game, run your business, get that passion back that you had, and make it happen.
And the other thing is that, look, I don't blame my ex-wives. I still have a great relationship with both of them. It's not their fault. My responsibility to the relationship was to vision forecast where I wanted to go, what I wanted that life to look like, and be aligned with my spouses. When you're not aligned, you get out of alignment. One of the things I had to learn was how to align. And unfortunately, in the process of being out of alignment over long periods of time is you have fracturing that sometimes is irreparable. But I would rather get out of the relationship and have a great relationship with my kids and with my exes than have a devastating relationship and devastate everybody else's life around it because I couldn't manage or control it. I had to own what I contributed to the failure. If you don't start assessing and owning what you contribute to a failure, you'll never be a better version of yourself because you'll always be a victim of somebody else.
Wow. What's your number one business advice that you can give us today? Number one business advice in general, what would it be, Brandon?
My number one advice, because, I coach business owners, executives, founders, high performance team members. My number one advice is very simple. There is no limitation to how much you can succeed personally, professionally, and financially, other than if you do not commit to bring others with you, you will be limited.
I love that. It takes a team, right? It takes a team.
100%.
What's a scripture or a quote that you rely on times of adversity that you read when the going gets tough, for reassurance? What's a scripture or a quote that the great Brandon Dawson relies on?
Yeah. Well, what you think is what you say is what you do becomes your legacy. So every time I find my mind going to something I don't want, I refocus it on exactly what I do want. That's my trigger for when I know if I'm going to be the co-creator of the thing I don't want, because whatever I'm thinking about, I will attract.
Well, thank you for spending time with us. How do we find you, man? You dropped some massive wisdom. I tell you what, I could keep you here all day, but I know you got stuff to do. How can someone get a hold of you, Brandon? How can we find you? I know he's on IG, right? Just go Brandon Dawson. He has a great following out there. How else can we get a hold of you if they want to connect with you, Brandon?
Yeah. So my IG is at Brandon M. Dawson. Or you can just go to bdawson.com. So if you go to bdawson.com, you'll find me, or you can go to at Brandon M. Dawson on IG and you'll see plenty of me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again, Brandon, for being here with us. I'll tell you what, this has been an amazing episode. If you want to I'll tell you what, you got to go out there and spend a day with them out there in Scottsdale, Arizona, 360 Grant Cardone and 10X. I mean, Brandon teaches the class. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're stuck in life and business, go to DanielGomezGlobal.com. That's DanielGomezGlobal.com. We'll give you your free entrepreneur assessment. And go out there and get our new book, right? The Makings of a Millionaire Mind.com. The Makings of a Millionaire Mind.com. It's on Amazon right now. We want to help you to grow your life, scale your business, and just be the person that God created you to be. Until next time on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we'll have another amazing guest. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to DanielGomezInspires.com and get your copy today. That's DanielGomezInspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.